Hey guys, so today I'm back with another one of my mystery videos. I'm actually sort of filming these within the same few days, so I don't know how well the last one went down, so I can't say that the last one went down really well, but I hope it did, and I hope you guys enjoyed the last one because I just find these really fascinating. So I'm back today with a different case to talk about, and I was telling Harry about this one while I was researching it, and I just found it so fascinating, and he asked like loads of questions because there's just a lot of sort of quite creepy things about this case. So yes, I shall just get started. I'm also going to apologise in advance if I have any lipstick on my teeth at any point. It's kind of hard to avoid with bright lip colour like this. So today I'm going to be talking about the disturbing case and kind of death, I guess, of the silent twins. I have my coffee, so you might want to grab yourself a cup because it's very interesting. So this case involves a set of twins, and their names were June and Jennifer Gibbons. They were born in 1963. I believe that they were from a Barbadian background. I think their parents were Barbadian, but when they were born they were moved to a place in Wales. It was just off the coast of Wales and it was called Haverford West, I think. I have no idea how to pronounce it. You will soon learn that I just am dreadful at pronouncing any form of names. So quite early on people kind of figured out that there was something kind of odd going on with the twins. They never actually spoke a word to anyone, and no one, I believe, heard them talk to each other. They only communicated with each other in like a bird type sounding language that only each other could understand, so no one actually really had a clue what they were talking about, and it just seemed that they'd reached a new level of closeness. So because this was quite a few years ago, they were born in 1963 and they moved to Wales pretty early on, there was sort of still a bit of an issue with racial groupings and things, so they had a big issue from a young age in school and things, because where they'd moved it was predominantly a white town, and they pretty much, sources have said that they struggled a lot in school because of their Barbadian background, so they were bullied a lot. And then because of this bullying it led them to exclude themselves more and more from just general society, because obviously they weren't having the best time already, starting off pretty inclusive with each other. They just ended up becoming extremely excluded. They withdrew themselves completely and just spent the majority of their time just by themselves. When they were both 14 years old, they were actually split up, I believe, split up in the school system. I think this still sometimes happens today. I know I went to school with people, twins and triplets and things, and they get split up just to improve socialisation, so I believe that was just kind of what happened. They were most likely just kept in different classes, so they had the chance to be individual and make their own friends and socialise by themselves. But this actually had a completely negative effect on them, and they ended up going into what's known as a catatonic state. So they pretty much just became worse and excluded themselves even more. A few years later they were secluded to their room, so they shared a room together and they just stayed in their room all day. It's said that they pretty much spent all day every day performing plays to each other and writing in their diaries and writing plays and things. So they spent a lot of time together, but they spent most of their time writing. So obviously after all this happened, people got hold of these diaries and read through some of the pages. So there's a page here that I have that I'll read out to you, or it's an excerpt from a page, and it kind of shows the dark bond that they had, and the extent to which this bond actually went without like anyone realising at the time. So in June's diary she'd written this passage: "Nobody suffers the way I do. Not with a sister, with a husband, yes, with a wife, yes, with a child, yes. But this sister of mine, a dark shadow robbing me of sunlight, is my one and only torment." June was the oldest twin. She was born 10 minutes before Jennifer, and it's said that Jennifer had always sort of struggled with seeing her as more superior to herself, so she saw June as just being smarter, being prettier. Just even though they were so close, it seemed that looking back on it there was actually a real dark bond that they had, and it wasn't quite as obviously just close as they had imagined. It's said that June sensed this negativity coming towards her from her sister, and she then wrote another passage which said, "She wants us to be equal. There is a murderous gleam in her eye. Dear Lord, I'm scared of her. She is not normal. Someone is driving her insane. It is me." It's said that they would actually often inflict bodily harm on each other, so they spent so much time just alone in their rooms, and a lot of the time they were unsupervised because it became the norm. So it's said that they just started harming each other. Not necessarily super aggressive like normal siblings would, but it was just sort of little acts of violence. And there's another excerpt here from Jennifer's diary which suggests sort of a reason why they would do this. So it says, "We have become fatal enemies in each other's eyes. We feel the irritating deadly rays come out of our bodies, stinging each other's skin. I say to myself, can I get rid of my own shadow? Impossible or not possible? Without my shadow would I die? Without my shadow would I gain life, be free or left to die? Without my shadow, which I identify with a face of misery, deception, murder." Pretty much it seemed that without anyone realising, both of them were completely unhappy with each other's existences, but yet they spent so much time together as though they were linked, not through choice, just because that's how it happened, which is quite a creepy thought considering you'd spend all your time with someone, so a sibling, a sister, a brother, with everyone thinking that it's better in the long term just to accept that you spend so much time together, but in actuality you completely despise one another and don't communicate that with anyone. I just feel that's such a creepy and scary thought. Along with writing these diaries, it's said that they spent a lot of time writing plays and novels, which is kind of just what they did to pass the time. So there is some evidence of a particular novel that Jennifer had written, and it was called Disco Mania, and it's pretty much, just from what I could tell from research, it was an extremely graphic and aggressive story, a disturbing tale of like violence that happened at a disco, and it's quite yeah, it's quite graphic, so it's something that gives you a little bit of an insight into the sort of thoughts that they'd had. So obviously this was Jennifer's novel, but June had also written novels. There was a bunch written by both of them. You can do some research if you want to find some more examples, but yeah, they're really quite disturbing. They spent a lot of time writing these novels, and I think their goal through writing these novels was, in the long term, sort of attempt to gain some sort of fame from selling these novels, but they just didn't get that much attention. They weren't that successful with writing, so they decided, quite young I believe still, to just get attention other ways. They weren't getting the attention and success that they wanted through writing, and they decided to turn to acts of violence and criminal activity just to get attention, pretty much. These acts of violence started off as slightly smaller, so they would start off by choking each other, and then this progressed slowly, so then they would start taking part in petty theft, just stealing bits, like petty acts like that, so criminal activity but nothing too aggressive. And then their downfall was actually when they decided to start burning down buildings, which actually got them arrested, I believe. Because of this arson charge, they were actually taken to court and they were deemed just not mentally stable, and they were sent to quite a high security mental facility. This hospital was called Broadmoor, and if any of you know the story of the Cray twins, or the Cray brothers, Ronnie Cray I believe spent his sort of remaining years alive there. That's what a few sources have said. I haven't looked too much into the Cray twins, but I roughly know the story, so maybe if you want me to do a video talking about them then I can do. But yeah, a few people have said to me that that's where Ronnie Cray had lived the last few years of his life. Yeah, this was a high security mental facility because they just were deemed unstable and people had actually started to see the sort of behaviours they were taking part in. And in the years that they stayed at Broadmoor Hospital, they were found to just be taking part in activities that were, and behaviours that were even more disturbing and dangerous than initially expected, initially witnessed in their younger years. So they would do things like take turns eating. One would just eat all day while the other one starved themselves, and then the next day it would switch round. And this is all while they weren't communicating, still bearing in mind, so it's just such a creepy sort of thought to witness that. I think there are also accounts of nurses that worked in the hospital that have found them in completely different ends, because their cells were just other opposite ends of the hospital. Nurses found them in exactly like eerily similar positions, just frozen, which is, again, it just gives me the creeps. They stayed in Broadmoor for about 11 years before it was decided that they weren't actually as high a risk as they initially had been, so they were transferred to a lower security hospital. This particular hospital was just, it was a low security clinic. It was in Wales as well, and sort of in the past recent years, this journalist whose name was Marjorie Wallace, she worked for the Sunday Times. She'd caught wind of their life and what they'd gone through, and just pretty much decided to befriend them as a way of writing their memoirs. She wanted to learn about their story, about their life, what's gone down, and pretty much just write their story. So like I said, she befriended them towards the end of their stay, so it was about sort of the 80s. She approached them and said that she wanted to write their biography, which actually came out I believe in 1986 and it's called The Silent Twins. So she met with them a lot just to discuss their life and their story, get sort of whatever information she could out of them. I don't know how successful it was, but I mean obviously the biography was written, so they must have started talking to her, which is, I mean, a good sign, I guess. Marjorie Wallace said that in one of the last few meetings before their transfer to the lower security hospital, there was sort of something quite creepy about the conversation they had. So she said that they were having a cup of tea, the three of them, and Jennifer just really suddenly and abruptly came out with the words, "Marjorie, Marjorie, I'm going to have to die." And I mean, that in itself is really quite, it's really quite creepy to hear. And when Marjorie asked why that was the case, she just replied with, "Because we've decided." Obviously this was a huge red flag, and it's the sort of thing that you just don't really know what to take out of it, so I don't know sort of if any extra measures were taken, just any precautions or anything, but that is extremely creepy. I'm pretty sure it's just widely believed now, looking back on it, people just believe that they had made this pact for one of them to die so that they could just live a normal life as happy individuals. Sorry, there's a train. In March 1993, the twins turned 31 and they began their transfer to another hospital, which was, I think it's called Caswell Hospital. It's just a lower security hospital. How many times have I said hospital now? Everything seemed to be going fine until when they arrived at the clinic, Jennifer appeared to be completely unresponsive. She was rushed to hospital straight away and she was pronounced dead, and they said that the cause of death was something called acute myocarditis, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it is just a sudden lethal inflammation of the heart. So her heart just inflamed, and I think there's a condition where it's quite common in some toddlers and babies and things. So it was natural causes. They found no evidence of poison or anything to suggest that anyone else had anything to do with her death. It was just completely natural, which makes everything that I'm about to tell you quite a lot creepier. So like I said, they found absolutely no evidence that anyone else had anything to do with her death, and when they asked June what had happened to her sister, obviously it was just the two of them alone while they were being transferred, June said that Jennifer just placed her head on her shoulder, took a last breath and said, "At long last we're out," which I don't know about you guys, but hearing that, it's so creepy. The timing of that alone makes you just, oh. See, reading that for the first time made me shiver because, like I said, there was no evidence to suggest that anyone else had anything to do with it, and if June is completely 100% telling the truth, then that's just so creepy. Oh. And yeah, that's pretty much what happened. June lived on to live a normal life. They didn't think she had anything to do with it, so she just literally lived a normal life. So above where Jennifer is buried, they have a headstone where a poem is displayed that was written by June for her, which again is still quite creepy. The entire story is creepy. So the poem that June wrote for her sister says the following: "We once were two, we two made one, we no more two, through life be one, rest in peace." And that is the story of the Silent Twins, the Gibbons twins. This particular video I'm not discussing any theories or anything because obviously there isn't really any foul play involved. It wasn't a mystery involving like someone they couldn't find a killer or anything. It's just such an eerie story that I can't believe actually happened, and I don't know. Let me know down below what you guys think about the strange bond that these sisters had. And I mean, there are theories out there I think that suggest things to do with Satanism and just weird dark stories like that, but let me know what you guys think down below, and let me know if you are just as creeped out as I am by that story. Also tell me if there are any particular cases you want me to discuss at some point if you enjoy this sort of series. And yes, I hope you guys found this just as fascinating as I did, and I'll see you guys soon for another video. Bye!